Happy 2019, folks. My name's Kamel, and I love music. I especially love music from the independent record label Fake 4 Inc., which has been releasing music since 2008 under label head Chesky Ramos and his brother David. They started their label back then just to release music by their family and friends. They, wanted to release their music independently, so they've been doing this for almost 11 years now. A couple years ago, they started a promotional series called Free Sember during December. And each week in December, they release one free album, usually an EP. I've reviewed 2 albums for this Free Sember, and it's been a little bit of a break. Spending time with my family and, doing what needs to get done for the holidays. And now I'm back to review in the new year. The album I'll be reviewing today is by a rapper named Ersatz Splynter. So Ersatz Splynter is a rapper from California, and I first heard his name when I saw that he featured Micah 9 on a track on his first album, La Lochesia, which came out in 2015. Anyway, he featured Micah 9 on a song called Grub, and it was a great song and I loved it, and I listened to the rest of the album and I just fell in love with the style, and I was excited to hear that this was going to be a Free Sember release. And so here's the review for Ersatz Splynter, rapper-producer extraordinaire from California. His new EP for the Free Sember release is called Apartment Number 1. So Ersatz Splynter's Apartment Number 1 is a really deep, meditative, introspective dive into the world of a child who's had innocence ripped right from under him, sort of like a tablecloth ripped from a table at a fine dining restaurant. But in this case, the restaurant represents the cruel world where addiction is prescribed and where family offers no safe haven. The only thing left standing on this bare table is the music. And through the meditative act of rapping and producing, Splynter lays all of his woes, his vices, all his socio-political views. He lays it all out on the empty table and invites us into his home to give us some home-cooked, nutritious food for thought and wisdom. Because really, music is Ersatz Splynter's only sanctuary. And it's his method of healing that child within. So he uses his music to escape, toxic family members who lead him to toxic lifestyles. And that's what gives him the drive and the patience to find inspiration and then condense it into this music, which is sort of like a reflective mirror of his mind, of his spirit, his personality, his soul. He definitely has a unique way, like a DIY aesthetic of making his music any way possible. And he's gonna make it happen no matter what he's going through, no matter how broke he is, no matter how low he feels. He's gonna keep making this music. And it's something that's consoling. And the music, like I said, is really his only sanctuary. And but his DIY kind of aesthetic, it gives it like a minimalistic feel to his music, or sort of like a lo-fi feel to the music. But it still is really unique, and it brims with individuality and originality, in my opinion, because he utilizes the minimalism correctly. And the sound is it really closely resembles the cover art that you see. It depicts Splynter's sacred space, his living room, where he makes his music. And it also depicts the various tools that are involved in the making of this very album. You'll see the presence of a little microKORG keyboard, little drum machine loop pedal, melodica, saxophone. I mean, he has a saxophone in here, come on. And he knows how to play it too. The stylistic mode of the cover of the album, though, is reminiscent sort of of a children's illustration. When I saw that album cover, I thought of a illustration you might find in a child's book. And it matches the theme and the mood of the music as well. Very childlike, nostalgic kind of mood. The album as a whole, though, draws the listener in with these childhood vibes and then brutally unleashes the reality of a world rife with prescription addiction, with oppression, with child abuse, intolerance. And the lyrics that Splynter utilizes are driven by the passion of an MC who really wants nothing more, an artist who wants nothing more than to express himself authentically and make a change for the better, at least for himself, if not for the world. the album, the making of this album is actually like a meditation for Splynter. And on the intro track, which is an instrumental, Splynter samples a speech that alludes to meditation as a way of getting it's a way for one to get what one needs, out of doing what one loves, literally just for the sake of the love and the passion one feels while doing that act that one loves doing. And so it's very, very meditative and reflective intro that we have there. Very brief as well. And he's hurdling all these walls to do what he loves. And on that intro track, he's basically, as the intro track fades out, the speech is telling us to suspend our fears, our anxieties, and our desires. And basically we're just gently carried into Splinter's world, Splinter's fucked up Neverland. So after the calming meditative intro track, after we're carried off into this Neverland, the second track is called Chess Like Check, where heavy calming synths are accented with a slow but distinct bass line, all laid over a barely present saxophone loop. And it's beautiful. It leads the listener it led me anyway, directly into what felt like a childhood daydream. It was beautiful. And it has a lot of references, lyrical references to childhood, such as references to board games, costumes, parents, Ring Around the Rosie, and Splynter and his guest vocalist, Squaloscope, remind us of how playfulness and childlike wonder are essential to being happy with oneself, and essential to combating depression and overcoming the shortcomings of a job that doesn't pay well, and just a world that doesn't seem to give enough after you give so much. So he opens the door to these nostalgic daydreams. He tells us to take the time to just smile at the crescent moon, clean up our mess in our rooms so that we don't leave the world a wreck. And Squaloscope's melodic vocal delivery is perfect for the song. It soothes and complements with tones that dance along the track as gracefully, as the saxophone, in my opinion. And she plays with lyrics like toys to escape those ashes that'll all cause us to fall. It's probably one of my favorite tracks on this album. It's just for its beauty and for the dynamic presence of the two different vocalists and their two different deliveries, and yet still meeting on the same themes. The next track, though, is quite different. It's called Homophobic Rap Cats, and this track bears a dope beat that sounds like it was recorded outside of a club that you would really want to get into, just to hear this beat a little more clear, because this beat is sick. It has and then on top of the beat, you have Ersatz Splynter coming through with like a blistering rapid fire delivery, denouncing intolerance of every form. He's denouncing, from the very obvious forms of intolerance such as homophobia, racism, classism, to the more nuanced forms of intolerance where people don't like people who live off the grid or grow their own food or have solar panels screwed to their roof, for example. And he does this all in under 2 minutes, which is beautiful. In my opinion, though, he has a somewhat nasally pitch sometimes, and he has this fiery passion that really comes through, and it can only be fed by a level of breath control that he has. He's an expert with his breath, and it recalls somewhat like a style that Idea would have had, rest in peace. In this song, he really reminds me of Idea, in many ways, even though they're still different and distinct. The next track, though, The Fallacies of Our Society, continues to get exposed with the track Pharmacy, which really goes down the rabbit hole of the prescription drug industry. Splynter points out the fact that many prescription drugs cause addiction and lead to other side effects as well, and that requires more drugs in this endless cycle of profiteering poison that a lot of people are fed. He basically creates this sarcastic party, dance song kind of for pharmacists to dance to every time, their patient calls, and Splinter's one of them, which is, kind of the joke of it, is that he's one of them that, they're dancing after, when he's calling them. And this is the song they could dance to. It's perfect. And the production definitely evokes that sinister joy of Happy Pills. It definitely does. It sounds like a Happy Pills beat. It's really good. The next song is actually Stand and Deliver. And Stand and Deliver is an excellent continuation of Pharmacy. And it sees Splynter stand at the pulpit to deliver an extended sermon on the contradictions inherent in our healthcare system that prescribe pills which cost so much that the medical bills, that the patients have to deal with cause more psychological trauma than the original diagnosed illness they're trying to treat with these pills. It's ridiculous. His lyricism and his style is again reminiscent of Idea in this song, in my opinion. For example, he says these lines right here. They feed you full of chemicals and tell you that they're edible, and just because it's medical, they tell you it's acceptable. The side effects will let you know this damage is irreparable, but if you're in the mood to die, this high would be incredible. I mean, that sounds just like Idea to me, and the way he spits it does too. But the way his take on this is really interesting, of Big Pharma in general, because it sounds like he has some experience in it. And I love the catchy movements and the tonal pitches that change in the keyboard loop, because the beat it starts to sound out really comfortable and conventional and poppy, and then it really descends into like a serotonin deprived slump sort of as the song progresses, and only to come back to this really comfortable poppy conventional sound, and then slumping back into that serotonin deprived state. So it's really cool contrast in the song and in the beat, and the tonal contrast of the music is just perfectly matched by Splinter's delivery as well. Another testament to his expert level of breath control, which is the only reason why I compare him to Idea is because Idea is a very good example of someone with great breath control. Now, after Stand and Deliver, this is one of my most favorite recent instrumental tracks that I've heard of 2018. Splynter puts down the mic and he dons a saxophone. He bears his soul with a saxophone over a sickly distorted, oscillating bass synth. It sounds like an incredible high one might have on these prescribed narcotics that he describes, when one isn't really in the mood to die in general. And it's a very, very perfect antecedent to the Stand and Deliver song, because it sounds like the type of self-destructive dirge, psychedelic mess someone could become from these narcotics. And now the next song is called Sometimes. Sometimes comes in stark contrast to the preceding instrumental track. It opts for a sunshiny kind of feeling melodica, Game Boy flavored sounds in the background, and like a catchy hook sung at the end. And although it has an innocent energy, it's not naive, nor is it void of wisdom. It's a track about how doing what you love requires hard work sometimes. I think that's why it's called Sometimes. Sometimes you gotta work even though you really want to do what you love. And sometimes, like what he does as a musician touring, it's basically the hard work that he has to do. And it involves avoiding the cops, which he sings at the end. As long as we avoid the cops, it can be pretty easy. Performing in living rooms, performing in bars, living in cars, finding, vegan food while you're on the road and not being able to eat fast food, that kind of stuff. All these hurdles he overcomes so that he can do what he loves. And by doing what he loves, then he can love who he is. They're giving him therefore giving him the persistence to keep doing what he loves. And it feeds itself. So it's beautiful, and it's a great song. Now, the sung hook at the end of Sometimes, as long as we avoid the cops, it leads perfectly into the next song, which is called I'm Gone, which is probably the most radio-worthy song on this album, in my opinion. It's very catchy. And Ersatz Splynter decides to, instead of grab the mic and rap, he decides to gloomily sing of his departure from family that he tried making amends with, but who still pushed him away from them. And it's definitely the most revealing and personal track on this album, for sure. He states that he won't get homesick knowing that he can't return, because when he thinks of the things his family did to them, he starts to burn. He says he broken his nose, he broken his hands, but the hands of his family tree are the reasons he ran. So it's a very personal song about his trauma, whether it be trauma from his childhood or or it be trauma that he's dealing with now. It all is relevant, and it seems like he's been through some sort of hell that his family put him through. And that's why I think music is his only sanctuary. That's what it seems like. He's realized basically trying to stay in this abusive relationship with his family is futile, and he won't make the same mistakes over and over again because that would be insanity. He'd rather just get in his car, you know, and just leave those who won't see his value as a human being, and more importantly, his value as a family member. You know, we've all been there before. People just don't appreciate you even though you're trying your hardest. And it's just they want to live in their own hell, and you can't pull them up. You can't let them pull you into their own hell, basically. And he's got himself to improve. You know, that's what he's focused on doing. And he's gonna improve himself. And if no one wants to come with him for that ride, he's fine with that. So that's basically what the song's about. Is, you know, sometimes you just gotta let go. As sad as it is, you just gotta do it, because that's the first step in improving yourself sometimes. And the music in this song, though, is very calming. The synths calm down a little bit and return with like a lower melancholic tone, and they're accompanied by this very sad melodica. And it's driven by a very slow drum beat and Splynter's heavy-hearted vocals, which remind me of something that Gregory Pepper might do. They really do. I think this track would sound perfect next to Gregory Pepper's Miss the Train from Factor's album Lost and Graham. Those two tracks would go perfect together on some kind of mixtape. I think that'd be cool. Or if just Gregory Pepper and Ersatz Splynter did some kind of indie rock collaboration, I think that'd be dope. Because this song is awesome. And I love Gregory Pepper. And now, after I'm gone, we get the final track. And the final track is basically Big Bar outro. It's an outro verse, and it's one of my favorite tracks in the album, honestly. It's the only one in the album that's not produced by Splynter. It's produced by AWOC. And he comes with this beat. AWOC comes with this beat that's just it fits in with the rest of the album perfectly. I don't know how. I believe they have worked together before, so it makes sense to me that they were able to cook up that chemistry again. But it's nice to see that chemistry and to see it work for the album and still match the mood of the album. But what's cool about the beat is that it uses a strange time signature and samples what sounds to me like a piano loop accented with like a guitar, a short guitar loop. And I think the producer may have thrown in a little glockenspiel. I'm not sure about that, but I think so. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. Either way, the tightly constrained loops and the odd time signatures, they work perfectly as thematic walls for Splynter to hurdle with his breath control. And he does it expertly with a tone and delivery that recalls like some of the greatest Mocha Only tracks. And I love Mocha Only. He's a great rapper, and I love how he can just push through certain time signatures really well. And I think that's what Splynter does in this song very well. And it matches the theme, you know, him hurdling these walls to make his music, so that he can make this music about hurdling these walls so that others can hopefully be inspired to do the same thing. And as he breaks these walls of the off-kilter time signature, he also neatly summarizes basically the problems that he's been talking about throughout the whole album. And he does it in like 2 minutes. He summarizes the whole album perfectly in 2 minutes in an odd time signature. It's awesome. He covers working the 9 to 5, you know, to fund his musical expenditures. You know, having to wait for inspiration and be patient, and you know, dealing with drug addiction, dealing with dysfunctional family, harassment by cops, abusive childhood, every form of intolerance, and a driving passion to help humanity. You know, it's the only logical way I could see the album close and not feel like I've been left hanging. It summarizes the album better than I ever could. So that's all I gotta say about that track. If you want to hear what the album's about, listen to that Big Bar outro and you'll know what it's about. And for such a short album, though, I think Splynter condenses a lot of passion and inspiration, and if you like this, please check out his first album. I think I'm pronouncing it wrong, but Lalochesia, Lalochesia, I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's a good album, in my opinion. I liked it a lot, and I've been listening to it for a few years now. And that was released by Fake 4 Inc. as well. I appreciate your time, and I wish you all the best new year possible, and I'll see you for the next review. It should be the next December review I should have done pretty soon is Neptune and Babylon. Till then, you guys be safe, have fun, it's a fine balance, but do both, please.